I wanted to show you guys how I did some of the drum MIDI for this new single that I got coming out. And also I know a lot of you guys have your own studio projects, so I want to show you basically how I go about making realistic drum MIDI. I'm only a guitar player, so I do play some drums, but I'm mainly a guitarist, but I do write my own parts. And so through the magic of MIDI, through the magic of basically what you can do nowadays with, for example, I use Steven Slate drums, or there's a lot of other drum triggering or other programs like that. You can create really awesome complex parts, and especially as metal drummers, there's a lot going on, so there's no way I could possibly play any of these parts myself, but it's really cool to be able to write stuff that fits. But the difficulty is writing parts that make sense for a drummer to actually play, and then also writing something that sounds realistic. So here's a sample of the song that I'm working on. Just play a quick blast beat. This is my pre-production part. I do all my own pre-production, but then I actually go to a real studio and record. So I got Steven Slate drums. I think I have maybe some edits on, it's one of the metal kits. I actually can't remember which one it is here. But either way, and then I add some of my own. So let's look at some of the drum MIDI here. So I actually learned some of these techniques from an engineering friend who went to audio school. He showed me how to program drums. He helped me with the first This Divided World EP back in the day. And then just over the years I picked up some other tips. So the biggest thing that you want to do and that you can control is to create timing differences and velocity differences. So velocity is basically how hard the virtual drummer is going to hit that, whatever this is. So this is a snare right here. Oops. So if you look at the color, you have reds, you have oranges. And if you also look down here, you can see some are taller and some are shorter. These lines down here. Basically the red is means it hits heavier, and as you go down it's like a lighter hit. It goes down all the way down to green. So basically that lets you control the dynamics. And then if you look at here the grid, and I'm using Reaper, but you can be using anything you want. The grid shows us how tight on the timing. So if I move, let's see here, do I have that on? Yes. If I move this a little bit here, is it locked to the grid? Oh, there we go. So if I move this a little left, it means they're going to hit a little bit before the bar. If I do this after, it means they're going to hit a little bit after the bar. So let me show you an example. Let me find a blast beat where it's really obvious. I think there's one over this section over here. So in a blast beat, it's really obvious when something sounds too perfect. So let me get this soloed so you can just hear the drums. So if you see here, I've actually already done the work of making things sound a little bit more human, but let me show you what it sounds like and what I hear a lot of guys doing. They do velocity to 100% or quantizing. So if you see this here, it's going to do to 100%, and then there's no variation. So there's no variation on the timing. And then also, And then also these velocities are 127, which is maxed out. Everything's full. So here's what that sounds like. Which sounds alright, because most of us are used to hearing those crazy drum samples really tight. But let me go back and show you the humanized version. So it's a little less perfect, and that's actually when you're just listening to the drums, it might be like, oh man, it sounds not as tight, but that's kind of the point. So all these variations here, see how they're a little lighter, a little darker. If you look specifically at the numbers, see how that says 108, that says 104. So there's these little variations, and that's like how real drummers play. Even the tightest drummer is going to have a little bit of variation, and in their timing as well. So what I did is I came in here, I think when I actually wrote these drums originally, I had everything set to 127. So I brought it down to like a lighter snare hit, maybe like say 105, something like that. And then I did this humanize function, which hopefully your guys' DAWs has something like that. I'm sure there's other programs out there, and if you have to do it manually, you can. I used to do it manually, and it's a pain. But basically it gives there's a random seed that chooses if it goes plus or minus. So these started all at the same, and now you can see they're all a little bit different. So that's going to add to the realism. And then the other thing that you can do is so that's going to give us different velocities. You can also do the timing. So you can have it be, this is really sloppy. You can see how much they move. But then as you get it closer, so maybe you only want like 5%. Even the best drummers are going to have a 5% of error. So as you get, the faster the part is, the lighter you want to go with like snares, for example, because the drummer's not hitting as hard. Another trick that I learned, if you can see these here, these are triplet kicks. What you don't want is you don't want 3 hits that are the exact same. But what you do want is you want that first hit to be really, let's see if I can zoom in here. You want it to be really high, because that's how a real drummer hits. And then you want it to kind of go down from there. You want it to be, your second hit's not as tight because it's not going to be your dominant foot. And then the hit after that is going to be usually even less tight. So this is probably a little more dramatic than I would usually go. But let's see how it sounds. It just sounds more natural. And so I use that technique with all my fills as well. You can see they kind of go from red to orange to yellow. And what it would sound like otherwise is like this. And it's just not how real humans play. And the other last thing I would recommend is if you have a drummer friend, or even I hired someone recently to look at my drums and basically critique them and say, would a real drummer play this? If you have 8 cymbals being played at once, 4 toms being played at once, like if I did this and did double hits, that is possible, but if I did, there it is. If I did triple hits, I don't know of any drummers with 3 arms. It just sounds weird. So those are some big tips that I use when I'm programming drums to make them sound realistic. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at thisdividedworld@hotmail.com. I can try and answer them for you, and maybe I'll break down each individual technique in a future tutorial.